So there was so little that every bit of love and support, every morsel of it, I just held on to it like so tightly because I never knew when I would get more and I had to make do with what I had. And so anything that could risk jeopardizing that love and that support was not welcome. And I took that energy with me into my adult relationships. Hey y'all, it's Chimdi. So I want to talk about anxiety because I don't really believe in Western medicine. I say that, and my sister is a whole nurse. I don't really believe in Western medicine. I only believe in energy healing, and so I never go to doctors, and I've never been diagnosed with anxiety. And there's a whole reason why I don't go to doctors, and it's tied to trauma and getting help and getting support. I've never been diagnosed with anxiety, but I've had a sneaking feeling over the last few years that I may have still have anxiety. I was watching a video from the School of Life. I think it was about loving yourself or hating yourself or one of those two. I was inspired to do some research on neglect because when I think about my childhood, that was like a key component, you know? And neglect is one of those, it's like the absence of support and love and recognition and being seen that causes the harm versus like an intervention causing the harm. I knew I had suffered from neglect because I was chatting to a friend of mine and she just heard me talking about my childhood and she just casually said, "Sounds like there's been a lot of neglect." And I just started crying. And if you see my video about why I decided to leave New York, you'll know that I know when something's true because as soon as it's said, it's like there's a part of me that's been in the shadows and been absent and frozen this whole time. And when someone just says the thing, it brings all of this light and all of this rush of like presence to this thing that has been there the whole time, but I never had the capacity to really see. That's what that friend did for me in that moment. And I was like, oh, I guess I gotta deal with that, huh? Part of why I'm here in Mexico, of course, it's the joy and it's the fun and it's all the good times and it's the beach and all these things. But I had a really intense experience during the retreat in North Carolina for the Timeless Wisdom Training, which is this trauma healing program. And I was like, I need to just process and integrate all of the stuff that happened there. And I need just like space to do that. And I can't do that if I'm busy thinking about my apartment in New York and dealing with roommates and all this stuff. Like I will not have the capacity. So that's part of why I'm here. I reached out to one of the staff at TWT because she said whenever I needed some support, I could reach out to her. It's been like this ongoing thing that's been going on in my spirit around a situation I had with a former friend. And it was really on my spirit the way I ended that friendship. I made a video about it and it's been on my spirit ever since because I was like, ooh, like I felt guilty. I was like, I'm feeling so guilty that I ended that relationship. And so I knew like there's a lot of energy here and I need to sort of release this energy. And so at first I thought the way to release the energy would be to call up that friend and send that friend a message and say, hey, I'm so sorry for how I ended the friendship. But there was something about that that just didn't ring true. And what I do now, because truly our body has all the information. The Holy Spirit has all the information. So a lot of information about our life and our circumstance, it's overwhelming. And so we don't ask and we don't inquire like what's really going on. But I've learned that instead of like guessing or going to external sources, I can just connect to myself and be like, hey girl, what's going on here? So I went inside of myself and I traveled to young Chimdi because something Thomas Hebel talks about is that the parts of us that are frozen in trauma, in addition to like the trauma that's frozen, what's also frozen is the learning from that experience that isn't allowed and isn't around in like modern day you. So when you release that trauma, with it comes the like education and the learning from that experience. That's also why he says that like when you think about modern technology and some of the advancements happening in our world, they're really divorced from like morals and ethics because there's so much collective trauma, like all the wars and the genocides and all these terrible things, that we haven't learned the lesson of like how to treat each other and love each other collectively yet. And so we're creating all this technology that is void of those lessons around love. So I was like, all right, young Chimdi, and I dove in and I was like, all right, young Chimdi, I know you got a lesson for me. What's going on? There's something in my spirit that doesn't feel right. Let me know what's going on. An adorable little young Chimdi, she put her hand on my knee and she said, Chimdi, people are not supposed to hurt you. And if people hurt you, you are right to defend yourself. Like that's correct. Like being hurt, that's not right. And this was like, of course, for me, a very, very big lesson. And I'm realizing, I was trying to figure out like what's going on, and I realized it was because of the neglect. I present myself and I think of myself as someone who truly does love herself. But when I look at my actions and my choices, there has always been this emphasis on the other person. I've made a bunch of videos on here about being a people pleaser and my journey around that. And so much of it comes from, I'm realizing now, the lack of love and support growing up. So there was so little that every bit of love and support, every morsel of it, I just held on to it like so tightly because I never knew when I would get more, and I had to make do with what I had. And so anything that could risk jeopardizing that love and that support was not welcome. And I took that energy with me into my adult relationships. So I'd be in relationships with people and they would say and do things that would hurt me either subtly or overtly, but because I was so attached to the love and to the support that I was getting in that relationship, I would not bring it up. I would not mention it. I would betray myself instead of standing up for myself and standing up for the love I deserve. And an extension of that is I didn't really trust that the relationship that I had with the person could handle these challenges, these mistakes, and these like experiences of being hurt. Something that came up during the training was that if you're in a real relationship with someone, it has to be okay that you can disappoint them and they can disappoint you. And what I found in my relationships is that I didn't feel that that was okay. So if someone did disappoint me, I would swallow it and not talk about it and not think about it and squash it down, and not giving it light and room to breathe and be seen would mean that it would just lead to this resentment that would end the relationship anyway. And when someone disappointed me, I would also slowly sort of withdraw my energy because I hadn't learned any other method of dealing with being hurt and being disappointed, because from a young age, as a kid, all you can do is withdraw your energy until you can, when you're physically old enough, actually physically leave the situation. So that was the method that I learned worked for me, was like, you just withdraw that energy in, but then eventually if you withdraw your energy enough, your physical energy always follows too. So that's why those relationships would always end. And I realized that what was causing this reaction was sort of like, oh, I have so little, I have to make do with what I have. And the way to do that is to not bring up when I have challenges or when I feel hurt, because it won't be safe to do so and I'll lose the love that I do have in this dynamic. And I wanna bring it back to sort of anxiety, because I made a video talking about being too much, and how the person was asking about it in the context of their professional life and their coaching practice. I'm also a creative coach, by the way, if you want some support. I mentioned how chances are that that approach of sort of making themselves small probably showed up across their life, in relationships with their family, with where they live, with their community, all these different things. And that's how it has been for me. So this anxiety and this feeling of like, okay, I can't hurt anyone's feelings, I can't offend anyone, it's shown up across my life, and it's shown up here on YouTube. I was watching a YouTube video from Kelly Stamps, and she was talking about her decision to live in Connecticut instead of New York, pursue her creative dreams instead of going back to Texas and being with this guy who wasn't in God's plan for her. And when she was speaking so honestly and openly about that relationship with this person, part of me was like, you're not worried about his feelings being hurt if he watches this video? That is such a prescient point, for me, is will someone's feelings be hurt? And always trying in every area of my life, in every conversation, every moment, trying to manage and navigate so that I'm not causing harm, because I associate having any sort of friction with the end of the relation and with the loss of love and support. And it's been really interesting now that I'm present to this. It's been really interesting noticing how it appears so subtly in every single dynamic. I'm just doing a little vlogging.
Nice, nice.
How are you?
I'm good.
An experience I had just yesterday was, I'm in a practice group for the Timeless Wisdom training. So a bunch of us get together and just practice what we're learning. It is genuinely so dope. In the meetings, we do triads, which is when you get in a group of 3 and there's a topic or whatever, and then you have an uninterrupted amount of time, 5, 10, 15 minutes to speak about that topic. And you practice transparent communication, which means being really connected to your body and speaking from your body, not about and telling stories. voice and the two other people listen and they practice embodied listening where they're connected to their bodies, they're connected to you, and they're connected to the space that as a group, the three of y'all are like creating together. It's so beautiful and it's so healing. Whenever I do these triads, because I do these triads all the time because we do them in TWT, I have my own group, my own home triad that we meet every week. I'm always so careful about timing. I always want to know exactly how much time we have. I always make sure to set a timer because it's so important to me that the other people feel that I'm respecting their time by only talking within my time. And so we had this triad and halfway through I was like, oh shit, I forgot to put my timer on. And I had like this huge like reaction and I was like, whoa. And I had enough awareness and consciousness to like realize like, this is a strong reaction to not putting a timer on. We get prompts from the Zoom like facilitator being like, your time is up, move to the next person. So it's not like you need to have it, but I realized that for me, even with the timer, it just comes down to like, okay, to be safe in this group, I have to make sure that I only speak within my time. And this feeling of like, even within a context that is, we're here to listen to you, there's this feeling of like, yes, but only for this certain amount of time. So make sure that you stay within these bounds. So I'm realizing that like, I have this inhale, and I'm in a constant inhale. I'm in a constant like, and I feel the way that pressure has created this tension in my body. And I'm starting to like, you know, Thomas talks about how we have different motivations to walk spiritually. And sometimes we just have this insight and this enlightenment and we win the cosmic lottery. And other times it's the fire and things get really hard and really bad. And we're like, what is going on? I need to figure out and like live a different kind of life. And I think especially around anxiety and around the amount of pressure I put on myself to try to control my environment and my internal emotions in my own body, I'm starting to literally feel like a pressure in my back and like a pressure in my head from just trying to always do it and to always do it alone. So a big part of my healing, and I think I might make a separate video about this, it's about actually getting support and knowing support is there. It has been a life of trying to do it by myself. And so a lot of my healing comes in the form of like, hey, can you help me? You know, just like texting someone like, can you support me? And just asking for what I need, knowing that it will be there if I ask. And that is rewriting all the patterns from my youth that said, no, it won't be there. So this is a lot I'm sharing with y'all. I'm feeling really good about the fact that I'm able to speak so openly and forthrightly with y'all on YouTube. And I feel the way that me sharing and being vulnerable really transmits some presence and allows you all to feel really seen. And that's my motivation to continue to create for you all. And I'm curious to see the way my creativity becomes more embodied and has more presence and has more vulnerability because I am not so scared about each video and each word and each idea and each thumbnail and each title somehow hurting somebody and somehow offending somebody, because I have more safety in my own body and I'm supported. So I know that if I am in a situation of overwhelm, I can reach out to somebody. I always offer, you know, in these videos and on Instagram, I always offer like, hey, if you need some support, reach out. And I'm realizing like just the process of reaching out for support is huge because I've spent so much of my life not doing that. So I just want to remind you to give yourself grace if you know you're doing something right now and you're alone and you know that it would be great if you had some help, but for some reason you can't ask for it. I've been there and I'm like just now beginning to reach out and ask and get that support. And it is, I'm just impressed by everyone who can do it like well and automatically and all the time, because I'm like, this is so hard and this was such a journey to get here. So yeah, I'm here if you need some support, but if you need some time before you ask, that is okay too. I love y'all. Thanks for watching. Patreon people, y'all remain the best. Let me know in the comments how you're doing and if you've done any sort of self-diagnoses of any of your mental illnesses.